Hello everyone and welcome back to our next roundtable. The topic on this one is smart cars. Joining me are the following experts. Mr. Jaka KLEMENT, Director of Motor Vehicle Insurance Department at Zavarovalnica Triglav. Ms. Sarah SCHAPPERT, Director of Urban X Europe by Mini, and of course Neri, FRIEDLANDER, Innovation and Partnership Manager at Daimler. Welcome everyone. Before I begin with my first question, I just want to lay down the rules. So everyone that's participating, please feel free to write in your questions in the chat. Preferably let us know who you want this question to be asked so we can include them at the end of our roundtable. Now, let's begin. My first question is for you, Jaka. As we've learned throughout all these presentations and keynotes, the car industry is rapidly evolving. It's getting smarter and hopefully safer as well. So Jaka, how are insurance companies affected by this fast development of technical components in the automotive industry?
Hey, thank you for your answer. So with motor insurance policies, we provide cover for material damages as well as for body injuries. We provide insurance coverage for damages on insured objects as well as third-party liability coverages. In either case, all of them are affected by ever faster technological advances in automotive industry. Basically, we can see two major trends in motor industry, as it was already discussed today. One is electric vehicles, and the other are vehicles equipped with advanced driver assistance systems, so-called ADAS. Second group will consequently become autonomous vehicles in some time in future. For the time being, in insurance companies, we still analyze electric vehicles in detail and to them connected claims experience and properties. But till now, there are simply not enough data to come to any statistical relevant conclusions. Based on the analysis we already have done in 2018, we identify contribution to greater road safety by vehicles equipped with safety assistance systems. We came to the conclusion that all such systems are designed to help to reduce the probability of car crash in the first place, therefore lowering the claim frequency on coverages that are related to driving. But at the same time, if crash do occur, claims on the material damages on such a vehicle are much higher. For instance, there are some coverages that are not related to driving itself, such as, let's say, parking coverage or hail coverage. If a vehicle equipped with such system got hit by another unknown vehicle, let's say in case of parking coverage, systems can do nothing about it, but the claim on the material damage will be much higher in comparison to vehicle without any system. As a result of our analysis, back in 2019, we introduced discount up till 15% for coverages directly related to driving, such as MTPL and motor-owned damage, for vehicles equipped with such system. And no surcharge for now for coverages that are not related to driving, because we want to promote safer vehicles on our road. And if I might add my personal note here, as a driver of vehicle of second level of autonomy, I'm experiencing paying a bit less attention to the traffic because I subconsciously rely on these systems to keep me safe. And they did now for 5 years. Plus, when I arrive to the destination, I'm much less tired using this type of vehicle.
Thank you very much for your answer, Jaka. I agree. I mean, my dream was always to be for the car to drive me instead of me driving the car. So I'm really excited for that to become reality. My next question goes to Sarah. In the past, hardware was a hot topic. You know, everyone was talking about that. Meanwhile, today, everyone is talking about data. Where do you think that the Urban X's focus will be in the next year? Hardware, data, something else?
I would say there is not a focus on either or. In our perspective, hardware and software actually go hand in hand. And when you think about the need for more resilient or connected infrastructure, the cities need both. They need advanced hardware and they need software which make data more actionable or actually can improve city life for our customers, government stakeholders, or citizens. And thinking about our 65 portfolio companies, the 80% who really gain follow-on funding are also a balance of both advanced and connected hardware and pure play software. And yeah, for our actually focus in the future, I would say we are continuing to focus on e-mobility, the connection to energy grid, making housing and business more efficient and resilient, and of course, taking the opportunity also to reduce carbon via logistics and supply chain. It's a supply chain.
Thank you, Sarah. I love that. You know, sustainability and being eco-friendly is always something that I personally aim to as well. Next question for Neri. We see that incumbents are working more and more with startup companies, you know, really getting connected, getting that fresh view. According to your opinion, what are some of the best practices and lessons learned when it comes to forming these partnerships, you know, really mixing the ecosystems?
Thank you, Claudia, for the question. First of all, you're totally right. In the last years, we see a lot of work and engagement with the ecosystems and with startups. I think it's mainly because the DNA of OEMs was not focusing on certain topics in that right now startups are able to penetrate and be part of what we call the auto tech industry, especially on the software side, on the sensor fusion side, and the electrification as well. So we see a lot of engagement going on, and I believe it's going to grow also in the future much more. In order to create these kind of partnerships or to form a successful partnership, which goes into an investment or a supplier relationship with a startup, we usually do some kind of a background work. First of all, together with the colleagues in Daimler, we try to analyze and find the gaps in order to understand exactly what kind of problems we should tackle. And at the same time, we are looking also for the, I would say, less obstacles as possible. And we have certain fields where we have more opportunity for innovation rather than others. So we usually trying to focus on those that we can actually show more value. At the same time, we usually work with a sponsor, someone from the organization that wants to work with a startup, has the willingness to work with a new technology. So these things are important for us in order to establish some kind of a partnership. And from the startup side, I would say, first of all, the most important is the maturity of the startup. So we work with other ecosystem players such as VCs and advisors in order to identify when the startup is ready to work with a giant such as Daimler or any other OEM, because it's usually quite difficult. So we usually go towards companies in round B and above, I would say, but not always. Sometimes we go also below. It usually depends how the startup it is and which field. And at the same time, we want to make sure that the value proposition is very, very clear and it's easy to communicate that to the corporate. For me, the most important thing is to build this trust between the startup and the corporate, between the department and the startup. Usually what we do at the beginning is expectation management. We try to identify and define the goals and what should be maybe what might fail during the process and what we want to succeed with. And this is a key to create the right trust and eventually also the right output with the startup and the corporate.
Thank you for that answer, Neri. Maybe a sub-question. What about when it comes to the culture between an incumbent and a startup?
So the culture is, as you can understand, the culture is very, very different. You know, at Daimler, we are approximately 300,000 employees. Most of the startups that we work with them are less than 100. And we have a more hierarchical culture, so it takes time until we manage to develop things internally. What we usually do is we take the startup as we have actually the interest to support the startup and make the startup successful, because usually it's kind of a win-win at the end. We want to have a good relationship. The startup is more agile, so the startup can work much faster, can do the changes much faster. Well, we are doing it, we're trying to get faster, but unfortunately it's not always working. So therefore, this is the main difference, the speed. I would say the speed is the biggest difference between us and the startup. in order to develop new technologies.
Thank you. There you have it. Patience and clear communication. My next question is for Jaka. Today we can see another financial industry transforming itself. What is the role of insurance companies, especially when it comes to cybersecurity in the field of connected and autonomous vehicles, which are coming closer and closer?
Yeah, this is a good question. So with the introduction of fully autonomous and connected driving, there should be significantly fewer standard car crashes and accidents. On the other hand, there will probably emerge a risk in vehicle liability insurance we have not known so far, so-called catastrophic risk of one event. And I am talking about cyber risk. Say, a cyber attack occurs on a particular vehicle manufacturer, and the result is that all of its vehicles would at once suddenly brake or turn left. Or, as it happens in one case, when one car manufacturer wanted to test its vehicle connection to infrastructure, that was traffic lights, they hired an ethical hacker to test the system, and as soon as he was able very soon, he was able to turn the traffic lights green. So we can only imagine what would happen if majority of cars would be connected and in that particular city at that particular time. In such a situation, we are no longer talking about independent and unrelated events, such as existing car accidents are, but about the risk that will require huge reinsurance protection, as its realization no insurance company can bear alone. In Zavarovalnica Triglav, we are aware of a growing cyber risk in the modern digital world. That's why back in 2019, as first on the market, we introduced cybersecurity insurance. Our existing product, however, is focused on micro and small businesses, as they are, according to our analysis, one of the most exposed to cyber attacks in Slovenia. Mostly because of greater challenge of providing cybersecurity and establishing security protocols, which became most obvious when work from home started as response to this pandemic situation.
Thank you very much, Jaka. I also remember seeing an accident happen. Well, I read about it. I didn't see it with my first eyes, but from a poster said stop, and the car stopped, even though it was not an actual stop sign. So we've come very far, but there's also a long road ahead. Sarah, if I understand correctly, you also work with plenty of startups. So what are the selection criteria to be selected so they can join UrbanX? What would be your recommendation for startups when they try to approach you and join your huge ecosystem?
I would say start with their selection criteria. In comparison to what Neri does, we operate in a very early stage area. And when we look for teams, we look really at the teams because we really want to work with them, grow with them, and get to know them over time. And when we look at them, we see if they are tackling problems like reducing emissions, making city lives brighter, doing big markets. And the question we would ask them is, how would you scale your idea to 100 cities in the next 2 to 5 years, for example? Or what is your impact on carbon? But we also look, of course, if the product is something customers would love, because that's also important to make it succeed in the end. And when it's about recommendation for startups, I would say they should already have talked to the customers out there, because they can give the best feedback, test and grow. They should approach us early and don't wait until the solution is perfectly done or it's the right timing, because we really want to grow with and work with them over time. And last but not least, they should have something unique and defensible that way you can build a moat around, or you can build a network on.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I like your explanation. As someone who's been on both ends, the startup and an accelerator myself, yes, added value, what makes you unique, and entering the market before it's perfect. Those really sum up the best practices that I've personally known. Just a quick reminder for all of our participants, we are coming close to the end of our roundtable. We have one planned question left, so if you have any questions for our speakers, please make sure that you write them in the chat. So, Neri, my last question is for you. You have experience in working in innovation ecosystems, both in Europe and in Israel. What are the advantages of each environment? How are they different? What's better?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, as you mentioned, I was working for 7 years actually in Europe in different innovation hubs, mostly in Germany, of course, in Stuttgart. There are quite a difference, I think, because of I think it starts from what we are doing as Israelis after we finish high school. We are going to the military, most of us, and in the military, you see a merge of a lot of talented and like-minded minds coming together in specific units, taking responsibility together, taking risks together. And this is a very good foundation for starting later on a startup after you finish your military service. So I would say that in Israel, the military is playing a very strong role in the innovation and also in building leadership skills later on. And so this will be kind of the foundations, the difference between Israel and Europe. In addition, what you see in the Israeli ecosystem, especially in Tel Aviv, is there is a lot of communication flow going on between innovation hubs, between different corporates, startups, VCs, advisors. We are all in a very small area here in Tel Aviv. So the engagement and the exchange is ongoing on a daily basis. And the communication here is very, very open, very direct, which helps also to create more and more and more network connections. And later on, it converts into collaborations and partnerships and success stories out of that. So this is kind of the strength of the Israeli ecosystem, the way it built, basically. In Germany, there is also a very, very strong innovation ecosystem. I think it's a little bit different from a founder perspective, because many of the founders that I met, for example, in Stuttgart, they are expert in their own niche, in their own domain. So you see a lot of people that are coming out of, for example, from Daimler, 20 years at Daimler, and then they get out of the company together with an angel investor or another founder. They decide to build up a startup in a specific field for automotive. So you see this kind of specialized startups in Germany. And sometimes because those people knows the corporate much better, it also helps to create, to build up easier communication, of course, with the corporate. So each ecosystem has its own pros and cons, I would say. I cannot say which one is better. Of course, now I'm based in Tel Aviv, but I like to work with any innovation hub, and I like to work with different working cultures as well. So it all works together.
Perfect. From the fireside chat I had previously with your colleague, Guy, what really impressed me is the Israeli view of, you don't look at mistakes or something as a bad thing. You look like something that you can really grow from and learn from, So yeah, I was really impressed by that. I don't personally feel that that is the necessary idea in Europe as well. What do you think, Sarah? How do you guys see that?
I still think you have to fail to grow in the end, because you will never have the perfectly product out there. And especially the early stage companies we are working with, there are a lot of things they learn on their way while growing.
Exactly, yeah.
Of course, there's the other part that when a car leaves our kind of factory, it should work. So
of course.
It's a different thing, but until you have your product done or are at the stage implemented, there you have to fail to grow.
Thank you. Jaka, would you mind sharing your views on this as well?
Yeah, but Sarah put it nicely. It depends on in which part of the process you are. So yes, of course, you may fail when you design a product or something like that, but after the product is operational and in production, then a failure is not a really good thing.
Yeah, well, that's why we have insurance companies, right? Jokes aside.
And I also think there's also a difference in between hardware and software, because in software, something on the way, Well, if you have a hardware product, to change that during the, it's a little bit more complicated. So software is something you can adapt a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's definitely different if your website crashes or if there's an issue with the car that's already driving. Perfect. Well, thank you very much all for coming. I had a lovely time with you all. This concludes our roundtable, so I give the word back to Petra. Thank you so much.
Here.